One of the most common challenges I hear from beginners who are looking to start the gym is that when they get inside the walls of the gym, they just don't really know what to do. So in this video, we're going to go over legs. I'm going to show you the only 4 exercises you need to learn to build strong, functional legs built for purpose. The first leg exercise that you need to learn is going to be the squat. The squat is the precursor to all functional movements, as well as any athletic movement that you want to do, whether that's running, cycling, playing any sort of sport. You need to learn to have efficient mobility, stability, and strength in hip, knee, and ankle flexion and extension. So everybody should squat. And in fact, if you do not squat, it's very likely that your hips, knees, and ankles are not very healthy, or at least not as strong and functional as they should be. Once your knees and hips and ankles start to go, everything upstream starts to get a little bit worse as well. So if you are someone that wants to build not only strength but maintain function, before you start doing any other leg exercises, you need to learn the foundations of the squat. So to start off with, you're going to start with a body weight squat. This is where we're going to really emphasize just moving through your full range of motion. Start with your feet just outside of shoulder width. You're going to break at the hips and descend into your full range of motion. If your hips do not pass the height of your knees, it is not a squat. A squat requires you to get down into this bottom position. This is the natural resting position of the human, and if you're unable to get here, you are not a functional human being. But it is very common for people to struggle to get down there, especially since most of our day is sitting in chairs where our range of motion is limited. So if you want to start, or if you want to squat but you can't actually get down there yet, you can perform a bottom up squat, where you're going to work in that bottom position and bring yourself up to the top. That's how you kind of force yourself into that bottom position while you're working on that strength and stability. If you feel like you just feel stuck as you try to get any lower, it could also be due to tight ankles. So as an alternative, to make sure you're getting through that full range of motion, you can perform a cyclist squat like this. That just takes the restriction in your ankle mobility out of it, so you can still reach your full range of motion. But if you can perform the squat fairly decently, you can upgrade that to doing a goblet squat. So the goblet squat is a great way to start learning how to squat with some load, as it forces you to move through good technique on the squat. With the weight out in front, it's hard for you to lean forward, and it'll show you where you're weakest in that position, whether you find it hard to get down lower now that you have the weight, or if you find it hard to keep your chest up. The goblet squat is a great level up from the air squat. And then the level up from that is going to be the back squat, where you're going to focus on maximal strength. You need to build up to this one, especially as beginners. I'd really emphasize getting good and confident with the goblet squat to ensure that you can reach your full range of motion with good technique before you start loading a load of heavy weight onto your back there. Now the next level up from the squat is going to be the split squat. So this is essentially the same sort of movement, but we're doing it on one leg at a time. This is really important for progressing yourself from the squat to building more strength and stability around your hips, knees, and ankles. Before you go on to any sort of dynamic movements, you should really be able to emphasize having strength and stability, working through your full range of motion on one leg at a time. Most human movement patterns, or most of everyday life, is done one leg at a time. Whether you're hiking or climbing or even just walking, you tend to do one leg at a time. So especially for longevity, but also for building really strong legs, you want to be able to train each leg individually, as well as training together for extra strength adaptation and balance and stability. So to perform the split squat, you're going to start with your feet right underneath your hips. You're just going to take one big step back and ensure your toes remain facing forward. From here, you're going to break at your hips like you just did for the squat, and you're going to try and lower this back knee down to the ground, push away, and lock those knees out in the top position. If you struggle to if you're struggling with balance, think about pushing your big toe into the floor. But the most important thing here is range of motion. So if you're struggling to get down here without too much pain in your hip, you can just start by having a pillow or a higher mat on the ground to reduce that range of motion as a target. But if you feel you're able to get down into that full range of motion, you can grab one weight or you can grab 2 weights just to make it a little bit harder. And again, focus on building real strength and stability in each leg there. The third movement that you're going to want to learn to perform is going to be the hip thrust. The hip thrust is notorious for building big and strong glutes, which is why it's favored by a lot of the female cohort in the gym. But it's so much more than just building a big ass. The purpose of the hip thrust is to really strengthen and activate your glutes, which is imperative for building or for improving posture, since if your glutes are quite weak, you're going to struggle to maintain good postural alignment from your hips. And since we spend so much of our day sitting, our glutes are often in a lengthened position, making them quite weak, and you feel compensation in your lower back and often in your hamstrings. So strengthening your glutes is not only super important for any sort of athletic movement, which often relies on hip extension like running, even the squats, deadlifts, all of the above. Most functional movements require some sort of hip extension, but it's also going to help prevent you from developing back pain by taking the load off your lower back, and you're having your glutes stabilize your hips and core and throughout the rest of your body. Having strong glutes is going to be one of the most important aspects of maintaining strong functional bodies. So to perform the hip thrust, it's a little bit more complicated than it may seem. Since our glutes are often in a lengthened position, we find it quite hard to activate them. So for a lot of people, you're going to just go start with body weight hip thrust with holds. You're going to try and go for 10 sets of a 5-second hold. So from here, your feet are going to be just out in front of your knees and wider than your hips. You're going to tilt your pelvis under by tucking in your belly button, keeping the weight in the heels of your feet. You're going to hold your hips out in front, or hold your arms out in front, hold your hips as high as you can. 5-second hold, come back down, keep your pelvis tilted under, and then go straight back up. 10 repetitions here. If you're still really struggling to activate your glutes with that, you can grab a small resistant band to go around the knees to really emphasize maximal glute activation by pushing your knees out. If you feel pretty strong with that, you can go to the next level and you can have it elevated. So you can have your shoulders rested on the corner of the box or the bench, and you're just going to focus on reaching a bigger range of motion. Same sort of principles, your heels are out in front of your knees and wider than your hips. Knees are pushed out, pelvis is tilted under, and you're trying to work through that full range of motion. You can add a weight with this one as well. Quite simply, you can use a dumbbell, just hold it onto your hips and get your upper back on the bench, drop your hips and then push away. You can also use a barbell, all the same, but the main focus on that is just adding a little bit more load onto your glutes and achieving a greater range of motion. The fourth and final movement that you need to learn to get a good workout for your legs is going to be the deadlift. More specifically, the dumbbell Romanian deadlift. So all a deadlift is really is just picking a weight off the floor. So you do this every single day. You're going to pick something off the floor, and it's a movement that you're going to want to be proficient and very efficient at throughout your entire life. Training the deadlift in the gym is going to help not only teach you proper technique and bracing, but also strengthen your posterior chain, which is the back side of your body, and dramatically reduce the risk of injuring your back or injuring somewhere else when picking a heavy load off the ground. So the deadlift can be quite intimidating, especially for beginners, since it has a notorious history of injuring people's back, but it's simple to bring anybody to a level of safety in the deadlift. Match with that walking, because it is a foundational human movement that you do every day. And if you learn to do it properly and build up the strength for it, when you're picking stuff up within your capacity, you won't injure yourself. So to learn how to deadlift properly, before we go to the traditional deadlift, we're going to learn the Romanian deadlift. And it's easier to learn this one with dumbbells. So for this, you're going to hold the weights on either hand, start with your feet right underneath your hips, with your toes facing forward. We're going to just think about pushing the hips back with a slight bend in the knees, let the shoulders come out in front of the weights, and you're going to lower down until you can feel a good bit of tension in your hamstrings. When you do, you're going to push the floor away, stand back up and squeeze the bum. So this is a more limited range of motion than the traditional deadlift, where you would go completely from the floor. This emphasizes more stress on your posterior chain, so your glutes, hamstrings and lower back, by not using your knees so much and pushing your hips back more. So we're trying to do that so we can learn to keep our back flat and load up our glutes and hamstrings. It's quite common for people when they're starting deadlift, they struggle to get into this bottom position by keeping their back flat, and that's how they injure themselves, by trying to pick up a load of weight without holding or bracing a neutral spine. So if you struggle to get down into that bottom position due to mobility restrictions, you can start by just working through the range of motion that you have, by emphasizing keeping your neutral spine and pushing the hips back as you load up your glutes, load up your hamstrings, and work on proper bracing and technique in that movement. Once you've mastered the Romanian deadlift, you then can progress to a traditional deadlift with heavier weights. But I'd really say it's important to learn how to do the Romanian deadlift before you do any other variation of the deadlift. If you found this video valuable, give it a like and share it with somebody else who might as well find it valuable. And if you performed any of these movements and had any sort of experience with performing these movements, drop a comment below. If you want to read the full article on how to perform each of these movements, I'm going to link that in the description, and hopefully see you again soon.